All right. Well, good morning. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 18th day of December 2019. Well, if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. There's kind of a couple different things happening astrologically. A more practical approach is happening, seeking clarity, restructuring the foundation. But a lot of this is going to be done today with some self-reflection, where you're going to have to look inward and decide what's going on there. The moon is, whereas it's sextile Mars, you're going to want to avoid overreaction. I mean, express confidence, of course, but don't get too emotional about it. But there's also a trine with Saturn again, and this starts some of this clarity and self-reflection and restructuring and all of that I think is going on today. I know that the impeachment's going on right now, and so I don't know, some of it could have to do with that. There's sort of a blend between foundation and I don't know, just restructuring and changing the outcome, maybe, I don't know, or accepting the outcome. A trine with Pluto, between the moon and Pluto, truth needs to come to the surface, but it's kind of up to you. And we've seen kind of a flow with that over the last 3 days here, where first it was in conjunct with Pluto, where, well, you might want to keep your thoughts to yourself till they really, kind of gel better. And then yesterday it was let's see, what was it? Oh, Seska Square, that's what it was. And so you're kind of it's going to come to the surface, and it's going to be what it's going to be, I guess. And today it's just accept the outcome and move on of it. So there's just been a kind of a flow of maybe changing how we see things, allowing new information to come in, whatever it is, whether it's on a personal level or what we're all dealing with as a nation, I don't know. The sun in the 12th house in Sagittarius again. A lot of things, instead of congregating this time in the fourth quadrant, it's sort of spanning the 12th house and the first house. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. You're wanting to shine, yet you're maybe it's the self-reflection that's informing your ability to go out there with confidence and knowing your true purpose and all of that. But again, the sun in the 12th house in Sagittarius, expanding. Sagittarius is about expansion of knowledge. You're going to have to really, I think it's just a day of self-reflection. Even though we may want to act, we really need to come from that listen to that inner voice when we do so. Mercury, also 12th house Sagittarius, expand inner awareness and truth, but through self-reflection. Mars is in the 10th house in Scorpio. Also sextile Saturn, maintaining focus to achieve goals. That could have something to do with work again. Anytime you talk 10th house, it's career or standing in the world, or so it could be how you're perceived. Also is involved in that. Jupiter in the first house in Capricorn, aligned in your true purpose. Opportunities will arise. Trine Uranus, also a sudden opportunity may happen today. Listen to intuition again. Saturn, first house, Capricorn. So again, here's your first house, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. They're all in the first house. But first house in Capricorn, responsible action. But you could also, this could just be a day where you just feel overwhelmed by it all. You're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to get good results, and you likely will. But you can also feel overwhelmed in the process. But here's the other thing, and this is what I think is also in alignment with the whole idea of foundation and structure changing. Saturn conjunct Pluto, areas that were stable are now sort of appearing to change. That things are just changing. And whatever we thought, in other words, now perhaps we're going to think something else. And again, that's going within and trying to, reflect on our beliefs and where we've been going and all of that, and just seeing what's something about that's changing, and you have to figure out, okay, what's going to resonate now for you. But so it's a combination of self-reflection and then going out there and speaking your truth. I think, if you were to boil it down to just a couple different things here. So anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. And we'll go ahead and we'll take, let's make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. It is. So it's dark, so I don't know. Everything else is dark, and I have weird lights. Anyhow, we'll take our first three cards, and then if we need to add a fourth, we will. Lately, we've been doing really well with just three cards, though. It hasn't really felt like we've needed to add a fourth in a while. And then we'll look at the Elder Futhark rune from the bag, and then we will draw our Geomancy rune, and we'll see what it all has to say, how it all sort of dovetails together. So let's go ahead and get started. And I do take the 13th card each time for randomness sake, so I don't do that in regular readings, but for here I do, because I want things to be just as random as possible. Mostly because we're using three different divination methods, so randomness seems to be the word of the day. Here we have the Ace of Swords. We won't spend really any time right now talking about them, but maybe just a little bit as I shuffle. Aces are about new beginnings, new thinking, so new awareness. Again, we're inner reflection today. Some days I can do this with my hands, and some days I can't. They're too soft, and I can't get a good friction with the cards. Six of Wands, moving forward in shared purpose. So you can kind of see the trend here, maybe. King of Pentacles. We're going to make the King our center here of our maybe our focus of the reading, or the focus of something here anyway. We're going to do again the yod type of a interchange here, where I suspect that the Ace and the Six are going to be. Well, let's just say, I'll say it this way. I think that the Ace and the Six are going to be the outcome or our response to the King. Let's put it that way. Here we have the King surrounded by all of his finery. You see all the grapes. You see there might be some oak leaves there. I grow grapes. I don't know. To me, some of the time you see grapes here, and it looks like they're surrounded in oak leaves. And I suppose that's the grape leaf and the way they're drawing it. But it's confusing because I have an oak tree and I have a bunch of grapes. So I don't know. There's a big difference between what the leaves look like. But here they look a little more like grape leaves. So you see the town in the background, but his back's to it, isn't it? He's more concerned with his own future, his own outcome, and not so much about what the town's about. You know, it's really the Queen that has to remind the King to show compassion. So it doesn't necessarily generate from within this King, although the King of Pentacles is likely going to be a little bit more focused on that because, you know, Pentacles being the earth element and about our material foundation and security and all of that. So you might be able to be a little more, he might be a little more dependable, in other words, in that regard, but really not so much. He's not looking us in the eye. He's really looking down at his big coin that he has there. So I don't know. I think that's where his focus lies. So it's all about him and his own material structure and foundation and security. So you have to ask yourself, then what's left for the rest of us, right? If we're talking about the Ace of Swords, well, together, you know, the 6 and 7, we're talking about balance, all right? That's the 6 and 7. The 6 and 1 is 7, and so we're talking about balance. Not enough tea yet. But I think the easiest way to read this is that, you know, after looking at what the king is doing, you know, new information has come forward, a new awareness, a new way of thinking. You know, you've got the hand reaching out from the clouds. You've got from theoretically from the unknown, and the clouds are brown, and so it's not something that it's almost like clarity has returned from darkness. Really, I mean, it's not that dark, but you know, because it's only brown, it's not black. So there's not, you know, you don't see like night sky and then another phase where it's moving into the light. But at the same time, you know, the end of illusion in a way, and new thinking is coming out. And you see the crown above there and the garland that denotes that the thought is from spirit. So spirit is informing. It's like all of a sudden we're suddenly aware of what higher self is trying to be, has been trying to tell us all of this time. And it's like, here I am, and here's the truth. And once we understand that truth, we can move forward together in shared purpose with one another. Wands is about the will, it's of the fire element, whereas swords is the intellect and our reason and the air element. So you've got air versus fire, intellect and will. Sort of, it's like the will is acting upon what we've learned, and we understand now that we have to go forward in shared purpose. That's interesting. I can't wait to see what the rune has to say. We're doing really well on time. We could, you know what? Since we are doing so well on time, I think we need a fourth, don't you? Let's just get a little bit idea here. Just a little bit of an idea here of what this is all about, maybe where we're going, or maybe we can define a little bit more what the new information was. Yeah. The 12th card of the major arcana, the Hanged Man, triple aspects, a 3 energy. You can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. That is not as easy as it looks, by the way. I am not talented that way. Anyhow, you see the light of spirit radiating from his head. Spirit's informing here. And I think that it's basically telling us to go within and know what you know. The truth is there. Whatever scattered thinking you might have had, it seems to be coming into focus now with the Ace of Swords. Whatever decisions we need to be making about the authority that we're dealing with. You know, if you're the authority, then it could be simply that after aligning and reflecting, I mean, this just totally aligns with the astrology for today, doesn't it? In the 12th house, the sun being in the 12th house, you're aligning in awareness and purpose and self-reflection, allowing all of the noise to just sort of dissipate and just focus on a still point, and allow your higher self, to the spirit that is you, to inform what you know about what's going on now, whatever this is in your life. Now, if you're the authority, perhaps you're having a difficult time expressing it. We talked about that yesterday, that on the one hand, you know, maybe your expression, this is a new position for you, because we've been talking about maybe changing work positions lately. Last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of that, suggesting that you could be getting a new position. Well, if you're in a position of authority now over others, maybe you're having a struggle with how you're expressing that, and you've forgotten the aspect of shared purpose in any type of a group setting. So if it's a work situation here that we're talking about, maybe some inner awareness here in how you express your authority. But otherwise, it just feels like a demarcation again with the king with his back to the rest of the kingdom. Anytime you see that, or you see like a line, there's like this same sort of line that gets drawn where it's like here's from one state to the next. But there's a sense here with the King of Pentacles that we need to move on without him. That he has interrupted the flow long enough, and now it's time to realign in our purpose with the Ace of Swords, and in what we know and in the truth that we all know, and then move forward in shared purpose together. Onto, and you see the white horse there. I'll show you again. You see the white horse there. So you're talking about innocence and purity and healing. So it's like everyone sort of gets on the same page here regarding the king. And we do that, again, through alignment in source presence, don't we? You know, this is not time for the ego to be making its voice heard. And of course, you know, I'm sure in Congress, that's all that's happening right this moment. So lots of egos are making their voices heard. But at the end of the day, the truth is obvious. If this is what this is reflecting, the truth is obvious. And no matter what we want or what we wanted before, the truth is obvious. And we're just going to have to get with it and understand it and just get with the program. Here we have Elwaz. And Elwaz, let's see, which one is that? Is that not the 18th? It's the 19th. Birkenau's the 18th. And I'm going to draw this one because it is indeed another bind rune. But let me look here in my rune book too on this one, because there's something about Elwaz. You're binding together for a mutual end, basically. But before I go and draw it out for you, I just want to be sure about one thing. Sometimes, well, there goes that. Sometimes, I drop this so I can see abrupt change. Yeah. Basically, what Elwaz is talking about is Odin's eight-legged horse Sleipnir. Which was a spacecraft, for crying out loud. Anyway, but this is about movement over obstacles. There was one thing here. No. Pull toward you, friendship. Okay. Swift change, progress, motion, movement over obstacles. Yeah, the binding toward mutual end. Partnership, safe travel, abrupt change. With what or with whom you should work. Yeah, that's the one there. With what or with whom you should work. Sometimes when I jot down notes, I don't include all the words, and so then it's like, what did I just say? But the whole notion of binding toward a mutual end, and I'll show you how we get there. Elwaz, of course, looks like an M. But if you've been paying attention of late, how we do this, you're going to see Isa as the structure. So stillness and alignment. But it's alignment with look, we may appear separate, but we're not. We're part of the same source presence. So these little parts of us that are focused into form, into these bodies, it's just an itty bitty part of who we actually are. The rest of us still remains in spirit, and when we're there, we're one. Okay, and so that's so the whole separation is just an illusion, and that may be what this whole awareness today is all about. And so then here we also have Laguz, forward and reverse. That's about flow and change. There's your abrupt change. A double dose of Laguz. But what you have informing it in the very top is Kenaz, or the light of spirit, focused downward into the whole expression. So you can see how that's actually what's happened here. We've had a realization here through the Hanged Man. We've aligned in our source presence. We've aligned in who we are. We've allowed that to inform whatever we believe here about what's going on vis-a-vis authority. Either it's gotten us to understand if we're the authority, that we have to move together still in shared purpose, that the demarcation line, even though it's there, the trust that you have for the people that you supervise has got to be evident in that relationship. If it's not, then you have to make changes. But at some point, you all have to move forward in shared purpose. So if you're the authority today that they're talking about here, that's happening in the reading here, new awareness is coming in, and you're just going to have to sort of calm down if this is a new position for you and find your footing. And I would encourage you, if that's the case, to keep the dialogue open, to talk with your staff and say, look, this is new. I'm struggling here, so let's keep the conversation open. My door's open, kind of thing. Let's keep the same kind of, camaraderie that we had before, so that we can figure our way forward here. I have some ideas, and maybe it's a little different than what you're thinking, but let's talk about it. So in other words, if you keep the conversation going, keep the communication flowing, Ewaz is also about that. So, but again, if this is something that we're all coping with, I don't know. I think that the truth is what it is. And I think that when you have people that want to stand there and say, oh, well, we don't care what that is. I don't know. You've got to ask yourself, why are they doing that? What's wrong with them? Because something is. Well, let's see. Do we have Rubius again? Passions are going to be high today if we do. Yep, I think we do. Okay, well, Rubius is one of those ones that the geomancers of old. It was Rubius, Caput, or Cata Draconis, and Carcer. If you happen to pull one of those, if you create that rune on the first try, you're supposed to destroy the reading. And I don't know. It's just the idea is that it's just too evil to continue. It's like, oh, come on. How do you know that the rest of the reading doesn't resolve it? How do you know that it's really evil and it's not just a bunch of passionate energy as an impetus for something else? Mars and Scorpio, I believe, governs Rubius. And so I understand, but we have Mars and Scorpio in the 10th house right now. It could simply mean focus. I don't know. That's intense. But here's the geomancy rune. If we're talking, though, about out-of-control energy, the opposite of this is albus, which is wisdom. Think the sage versus someone who's, you think someone who's wise versus someone who lacks complete impulse control, maybe. I don't know if you want to think of all this in the extreme. But it's the extreme, it's the out of control, the lack of impulse control that I guess brought us to where we are. Very often when we do the geomancy rune, it'll almost be like the underlying thing that got us here, or it could be the underlying thing that pulls us together. So I don't know. I suspect that it's likely the underlying energy that got us here, though. It's not easy, when you have to, when struggle is part of the whole thing, and the struggle is so bad that it just puts people at extremes from one another. So if this is about a change you've made in your job where you're now the supervisor, hopefully you're not that far apart from the people that you're supervising. But just understand, if you are, they've seen you a different way. For all this time, you were one of them, and now you're not. And so there's going to always be people that are going to struggle with that whole transition. No one's real sure what you're going to do. And so again, keep the dialogue open if this is you as the authority, if you're the king in this reading. Otherwise, if this is about the authority is something that lacks impulse control. And unfortunately, we have to make some decisions that are going to result in us moving ahead in shared purpose. It may not seem like it right now, but if you go inward and you let what you've been hearing gel. I don't know how you can not come out together on this. I think that if it is the greater thing that's going on in our country, it's caused such difficulty between people. Normally, I wouldn't, think in terms of that in a tarot reading. I mean, tarot readings are about how we look at the world and how we interact with the world and how we see ourselves within that, who we are within it. I just think that because we're source energy focused into form, we create at least the perception of our experiences, and certainly as we interact, we're taking part in the creation of the outcome of them. So whether it's simply a realigning perception here into something that's a more universal truth-oriented experience, or whether, because otherwise we stay in the ego, we stay in the rubious of it all, in the unbridled passions of it all, that's not really based on any kind of truth other than just what we want to feel at the moment. And sure, that can be fun, but that's not necessarily how we want to think in terms of going forward together in shared purpose that we see with the Six of Wands. So again, in order to do that, we've got to realign perception because we're at, way far apart from one another here. I suspect that it's more heavily on the weight on the side. It's more heavily weighted on the side of universal truth, of what we know about the lack of impulse control of this king. I think that certainly can be said. Unfortunately, there's strong powers that be that seem to want to ignore all of the facts and say, oh, crimes don't matter. Well, yeah, they do. So I guess that's where we find ourselves today. And today's the pivotal day where, no matter what it is that and maybe it's contained with the moon trine Pluto, where the truth needs to come to the surface, and it's going to be what it's going to be. and you just have to accept it and move on. So if you're changing your mind about something today, if after aligning in your own higher self, listening to what that has to say, letting things just sort of resonate into some kind of an alignment, it might not be where you started. You see what I'm saying? So you may experience profound change just within that alignment. So do it and see what happens. Things might, even if you end up switching sides, so to speak, at least you did it because higher self informed that, so you can trust it. Sometimes I think the easiest example is when you're in an argument with a friend. You want your way of thinking to be the one that the other person adopts, right? You see, maybe you're arguing about maybe it isn't that one did something to the other, but that you're arguing about something that you believe, and each one wants the other person to see their side. Well, okay, but if there's one that has the real truth of the matter, then, at some point you just have to hear the other side and see if that will resonate with what you already believe. And if it doesn't, maybe it makes you think, maybe that's the opportunity that we're talking about with Jupiter today. That, let me go to it here. Aligned in purpose, opportunities arise, but maybe it's not an opportunity that's going to net you some income. Maybe it's an opportunity to resonate in truth. The trine with Uranus is saying, listen to intuition. So maybe this isn't about something that's career focused. Maybe this is about simply coming into what you know and allowing that to resonate. I think that the combination of having so many, or concentration of planets in the 12th house and the first house, I think that there's a relationship there. Self-reflection informing how we interact with the world and the rest of, our friends, our family, our coworkers, all of that. So again, brought on by the impetus of unbridled and irresponsible behavior by somebody in charge. So I don't know. We've never seen this before. So sort of, I mean, the roadmap is there, but it's like, my God, do we step on it? Well, yeah, actually we're going to. So I don't know. We have to do something though. You can't continue in this vein, because eventually the outcome is going to be known and we're going to be horrified. So I don't know. I think things happen for a reason, and I think that that's why it's happening. So we've got to put the brakes on what's been happening before the wheels come off the bus completely. So, and we can go nowhere. So anyhow, I will see you tomorrow, but I think that I'm going to take the next week off. That's the week of Christmas, and we're going to be kind of in and out of here a lot, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and take next week off, but I will be back tomorrow. So do come back, and maybe we can kind of see if this sort of, I don't know, maybe the cards will wrap things up for what's been going on this week, and we can kind of get a better idea over what's going to happen, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know at this point. Things are so much in flux. But again, if we can just align in source presence, align in higher self energies, and allow that to inform what we believe, we may find that we experience the opportunity for transition into something else, in alignment, in a truth that we might have resisted, but now we know. And no matter what it is, I mean, isn't it just better to know? Even if it's icky, isn't it just better to know? I think it is. At least it's just how I see it. It's like, oh gosh, I don't want to know that, but then yeah, I guess I probably do. Even if it's bad, at least then we know what to do, right? So, okay, that's enough. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for coming by. Again, check out my blog, Stepping Aside, over at imsteppingaside.com. You can find me everywhere underneath the video here, and all in the show more section. I've got all my links and all that stuff there of how you can find me and everything. So we'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.